your paper presenters. So now we are going to begin the technical session 7. So we have 4 paper presenters here. So let me start with the first one. The first paper presenter is Dr. Happy, Associate Professor in Government Research Center, Thrissur, and Manjari Karti, Research Scholar, Thrissur. So may I request Manjari to present her paper.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. So Manjari is going to talk about relevance of gender dimension in teaching and learning process. So I hand over the session to you, ma'am. Just present your paper.
Ma'am, visible?
Yeah, it's visible. Please carry on.
Okay, good morning all. My name is Manjari. I'm a research scholar in IAC Government College, Thrissur, Kerala. My topic is relevance of gender dimensions in teaching and learning process. Objectives of the study: identify existing gender-biased attitudes and behavior among teachers and students, develop gender-sensitive pedagogical process in use and adopt learning activities that foster gender-sensitive classroom environment. So next, what is gender? Gender refers to a socially determined and culturally specific difference between women, men, and transgender. Gender relations and functions are dynamic and may vary over time and place and between the different groups of people. Our gender identities determine how we are perceived and how we are expected to behave as man, woman, and transgender persons. The role of the teacher. The teacher generally inculcate the gender-biased attitude as a result of their own socialization, formally and informally. They must leave their own baggage of prejudices biased behind when they enter the classroom. The teacher should first identify the gender differences in all schooling activities and then plan and implement the activities in classroom and outside classroom accordingly. Create an enabling environment in the classroom where all students, including the girls, can share their experiences, question existing prejudices and stereotype, and work out suitable solutions based on discussion and debate. The hidden curriculum. The hidden curriculum includes behavior, perspectives, and attitudes that students pick up in the schooling process within the outside classroom in an unintended and manner. The gender invariably through the organizational arrangements, including the division of physical spaces, the assignment of different tasks to boys and girls, routines, rituals, and practices in everyday school activities. The teacher, student, and the student interactions. Even play space, the boundaries of used by boys and girls in school, and the formal games offered to them are different. The teaching of languages cuts across all disciplines and is basic to the construction of knowledge as a result of its wide ranging implications of gender relations. Large number of elements such as words and expressions perpetuated the gender stereotypes. It should be gender inclusive, gender sensitive, and gender neutral. Use of visual illustrations, noun and pronoun, etc. should be gender inclusive. The teaching of social sciences acknowledge and respect diversity in terms of gender, religion, class, and disability, and look at all persons are as equal. They critically examine social, political, economic, institutions, issues, and various dimensions of equality that affect the same of women. The question and examine revised received ideas, institutions, and practices. The teaching of science. The women have historically had limited access and contribution to science and technology. The image of science is perceived as masculine, and due various socio-cultural factors, girls and women hesitate to enter fields that are essentially related to technology. Through science, students can be taught that physically attribute and difference does not reflect the superiority or inferiority. The differential abilities of all sexes should be recognized rather than categorized as one as stronger than other. The woman's role in perceiving the environment and its impact on their life should also be highlighted. The teaching of mathematics, it's common myth that mathematics subject is not for girls, and in its teaching does not have scope of gender discriminated and stereotyping. It is important to break this myth through our curriculum and its transaction by teachers. It should be highlighted through the mathematics that work at home is equally important and productive and should be projected as a responsibility to shared by all members of the family. The role of the principals in making school gender sensitivity. They identify the and critically examine gender stereotypes in behaviors and actions of all stakeholders, including self. The supporting teachers to make classroom teaching learning process more gender sensitive and use relevant examples during transactions of subjects. Girls should be encouraged to express themselves freely and confidently by the school. The girls and boys should equally participate in all sports and other activities. Develop a zero tolerance policy and an effective mechanism to address all forms of violence. Organize the regular self defense training for both boys and girls. The gender sensitization of all staff members, including supporting staff. Establishing a gender sensitive school management system that encourages gender equality in its governance and operations. The gender sensitivity physical facilities like separate functional toilets, water, sanitization, and sanitary pads to be made available. Involve more students to share their ideas on how to improve the school environment through gender clubs, guidance and counseling services for students to made them they available. The conclusions: the quality and retention and achievement are essential elements of an education strategy designed to ensure their boys and girls maximizing their all full potentials. As the gender equality in education framework indicates, the addressing issues of assessed in sufficient to assure that boys and girls receive the maximum benefit for their education. Getting children to their school is crucial, ensuring that they stay in school, learn, and achieve requirement more. The four dimensions of the framework of provide planners with a systematic way of addressing the components necessary for ensuring the relevant high quality education for all the learners. Seeing these opportunities will help them move closer to make education not just a lofty ideal but reality for millions of girls and boys throughout the world. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, dear Manjari. It's a wonderful presentation. So it's open for the people, the other presenters to ask any doubts or clarifications to Manjari, please. So open. So open to all. If you have any doubts, if you want to ask anything to Manjari, you can ask me. So I request Manjari madam to switch on her camera, please. Am I audible? Manjari ma'am, can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Yes, yes. Can you please switch on the camera?
Sorry, ma'am.
You can't. Okay, fine. The other presenters, if you want to ask anything to her, you can ask me. Yes, nobody is asking. It's a wonderful session, ma'am. It's a wonderful paper presentation. And you talked about this gender biased attitudes.
Yes, ma'am.
What do you
Yes.
mean by that?
Huh?
What made you to study on this gender biased attitudes? To do
Through
a research on that. What made you?
equal opportunity will give in childhood onwards.
Do you think that the equal opportunity is not given
Some
in
equal opportunity
education?
we give, but our culture and our customs is like that. The girls do that, the boys do that. That I'm asking.
Yeah. So you're trying to break down all
Yeah.
these stereotypes, right? Yeah. And it's a wonderful presentation, madam. You focused on teaching in subjects like social
Yeah.
science,
Yeah.
mathematics. Yeah, it's a wonderful study. So good presentation
Thank you.
too. And it's
Thank
nice. You carry on with your presentations.
Thank
It's
you.
good. Yeah. Can you move on to the next paper presenter? Okay, the second paper presenter is Kalaivani, PhD research
Yes,
scholar,
ma'am, I'm
Department of
available here.
Physics. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Can you please present your screen and you can
Yes,
present your
ma'am.
paper?
Shall I begin now?
Yes. Yeah, you can.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, is it visible, ma'am?
Yeah, ma'am, it's visible. You can carry on,
Okay,
please.
okay. So, I'll start with my presentation. Good morning to one and all present here. I'm Kalaivani, research scholar doing PhD in Wales Institute of Science, Technology and Advanced Studies, Chennai, and from the Department of English. So, the paper title is A Thousand Splendid Sun, Revelation of Self. So, as we must have heard about this book, A Thousand Splendid Sun, written by Khalid Hosseini. So, he has written more about this Afghan culture and the real nature of people over there and the struggle and everything. But revelation of self is one such thing that I found very striking when it comes to this novel. So let me get into this. So here, he's the writer Khalid Hosseini. Khalid Hosseini was born on March 4th, 1965 in Kabul, Afghanistan. And at the age of 11, his family moved to France. And 4 years later, then he took shelter in US. And he took a long journey over there. Then after, during this 2000, he came back to Afghan, where he could not relate himself with the nation, as he was a native Afghan, isn't a person from Afghan, but he could not relate himself to the nation, his culture, or whatsoever norms and everything. He could not relate it. He lived in US as an Afghan, from person from Afghan, as it is enough Afghan. But when it comes to this homeland, he couldn't relate himself as a son of this land. So he felt distant from his own country. And all the three of his novels become very bestsellers. Those are The Kite Runners, A Thousand Splendid Sun, and The Mountain Echo. So now he's been working as a goodwill envoy of United Nations Higher Commission for Refugees. So he's been representing them. And now we get into the book. So here, the setting of the book, it takes place between the 1960 to 2000s, early 2000, as we all aware of the political state of this country, where Afghanistan was under the hold of US armies because they wanted to get rid of the Taliban. So the Afghanistan was entirely under the control of US armies, and still there were some fights going on between the Taliban and as well as US. So the real people, who the real natives of Afghan, they were struggling. They could not find themselves in a happy, peace living houses. They were thinking about whether they would be able to survive in this world, whether their nation will be the same after this mutiny. So they were unsure about their own life. So this kind of a political stature was there during this period. And then this novel begins in the Helbet and then moves on to the capital of Afghan, that is Kabul. And there's this one striking character who escapes from Afghan and goes to Pakistan. Along with her, the novel also journeys. So we are taken from Helbet to Kabul and as well as to Pakistan, and then she comes back to Kabul. So it is almost somewhat relevant to the real life of the writer himself. So where he took off his journey from Afghan and then he went to gone to this France and then he took asylum in this US and he came back to Afghanistan. So it's almost the same. So here these are the characters. So now we'll get into this characters. The first one is Mariam. So Mariam is an ethnic Tajikistan. So his family is from Tajikistan, which is also situated in Central Asia, very little noticed. So her family is from Tajikistan, but she lives in Herat, and she's an illegitimate child of Jalil Khan and his housekeeper Nana. So as she was an illegitimate child, the household is not happy with her being, and as well as the lady of the house is not okay with her presence. The father is a little bit fond over this Mariam, but the mother, the lady, is not okay with taking care of Mariam because she considers Mariam's existence as an say a shame or something like that. So she doesn't want Mariam to be recognized should not receive any love from her father. So Mariam's only motive was to get accepted by her own family and be a part of his father's family. This was only uh, desire to be, and it is not being rendered throughout her stay in her father's house. And then, at the age of 15, her mother commits suicide, and after which his father took a decision to get her married to Rashid. At the age of 15, she was married to Rashid. And her spirit has been beaten down for after 7 miscarriages and many beatings of her husband. As we all know, that women are expected to deliver children as soon as possible after the marriage. So she had come across 7 miscarriages, so which made the family think that Mariam is incapable of procreation. So she was treated as a shame. As the same has happened to her in the previous part of her life where she lived beside her father. So she has not been given the recognition, she has not been given or treated well in the family. The same has been repeating in her marital relationship also. So she felt really bad and shame about her own self. And then Miriam finally finds love in the family, and she has always wanted in Laila and her daughter. So we'll come to talk about this Laila and her daughter in the next slides. So Miriam's only desire is to be accepted and to be acknowledged and to be a part of the family and treated as an equal or a woman. That is what she has been wanting from her family, which has not been given for a longer period of time, and we can say it has not been rendered throughout her lifetime. So the next character is Layla. Layla is the one is like Rashid. Miriam's husband Rashid married Layla because he finds Miriam cannot procreate. So let me go on with another woman, and he married Layla. She's also from Tajikistan, and his family is in Kabul. And she's extremely beautiful. Falls in love with one of her friends, and Tariq. The name of the friend is Tariq. At a very young age, they were in a love relationship, and later on plans to attend a university in the future. But the dream is shattered when her parents are killed in the rocket attack. As we were well aware of the situation, the political situation of Afghan, there's a war between the Taliban as well as the US Army. So you cannot predict when there will be a strike, when there will be mutiny, or when there will be a war. We cannot predict. So then, under such situation, she had this dream of having a good life, but all those things were shattered once her parents were killed by this rocket attack. And then she was rescued by Rashid and nursed back to the health by Miriam. So they found her as a wounded child. And then Rashid found it as an excuse to get her back in his hold. So then he married Layla. So becomes Rashid's second wife when she comes to believe that Tariq is dead. And most importantly, she settled down with this marriage only after she comes to know that Tariq, the lover, is dead. She believes that he is dead. She was made to believe that he is dead. So that was the point that made her to accept a life beside this Rashid. And they had 2 children, Aziza and Salman. So these are the kids. So then we move on to the next character, that's Rashid, Mariam's husband, an ethnic Pashtun and shoemaker in Kabul. He's very abusive. He's abusive towards both his wives. Seeks a wife who will bear him a son. So the only motive for him is he wants a son. He doesn't want a girl. So that was the main motive. And one more thing, Rashid represents each and every man in Afghan. We can put it like that. Because Mariam and Laila represents every other woman who has been asked or made to wear a parda and be in a corner, could not even say what they are willing to say, could not even act on what they are supposed to do. So that kind of an oppression was going on there. But Rashid represents the dominant person who always runs or decides what should be done in this household. So he's one such character. And when Marin fails to have children, he treats her cruelly and seeks to find a second, much younger wife. It's almost like the age of her daughter. So that's a huge difference, a huge age difference between Rashid as well as Laila, and requires his wife to wear full burqa and to not leave the house without him. So you may find it as something very normal. It's something that every Afghan woman should be doing. But why he's much insisting on it? The point is, it is not the tradition. He is not asking them to follow the tradition of wearing burqa just for the sake of following, but he wants these women to make sure that, okay, my husband has said that I should do it without even questioning it, whether it's right or convenient or not. No, there should be no second thought. So he wants to make sure that whatever he says in the household, it should be followed without any questions. So that was his only motive. So he asked his wives to wear full burqa, which means even at home they should be fully covered. So that was the idea. He never thought how this woman would feel under this burqa. It's like an iron curtain for them. They are asked to be there in the kitchen. They could never talk about anything in their life. They could never say any idea, any suggestions. Nothing can be done because it's like an iron curtain from within. Whether they are crying or smiling, are they in pain? It cannot be revealed. And one more thing, these men do not want to know what is happening inside the iron curtain. That's the burqa. Whether this woman is okay, is she fine, is she feeling the pain, or is she fine or not? Whatsoever is happening, they are ignorant towards the well-being of these women. And eventually, at last, she was killed. I mean, Rashid was killed by his own wife, Maryam. So we'll come to that point then. Then Tariq. Tariq is the lover of Laila, and they two made love. And Laila is carrying the child of Tariq. At the time, she was married to Rashid. So later, she comes to know she's pregnant, and Rashid thought it is his own child, but it is not. It is Tariq's child. That is the firstborn was Aziza, the girl. Only he has one leg, and as a result of being injured in Soviet landmine, flees to Pakistan during war. Separated from Laila, she is led to believe that he's dead, which means he's not dead. So he's obviously living somewhere else, but he's not dead. His absence has made people to believe that um, Tariq is dead. Especially Rashid made Laila to believe that Tariq is dead and gone. Eventually, he returns and two run away to Pakistan. Real father of Aziza and respects women as equal, unlike Rashid. The one quality that Laila must have felt striking about this Tariq is he is treating women as equal, which Rashid is not doing. So that may be the only reason she must have felt for Tariq. And here, Jalil Khan is no one else but Mariam's father. He's a wealthy merchant and a cinema owner. He has three wives and 10 children and visits Mariam each week with a gift, but never lets her come to his home. So he's living in a huge house and he runs a good business and he has a huge family there, but he's not okay with taking Mariam in because he considered her as an abomination. He considered her as something that should not be seen or that should not be talked about anywhere in his social life. So it's like a secret visit to seeing his own daughter. Every week he visits her, he gives her something, but he is not okay with taking her to his home because the women in the house are not okay with taking her and they have always seen her as an rival and as an abomination. Years later, Jalil regrets his mistreatment of Mariam and seeks forgiveness. And he leaves a letter of apology and even returns money, which is found by Laila when she visited Mariam's childhood home. So this happens in the later part of the novel. And here, as we all a little bit aware of these characters, let me say something about the story or the plot or the most striking part of why the revelation of self is being focused here. This paper focuses on the revelation of self because Laila, who has been treated as an abomination throughout her life, she she wanted to give something meaningful to her own self. She wanted to do something that will make her feel more alive. She undergoes a lot of pain, undergoes a lot of shame, ignorance, disrespect. Everything happens in this household. From her father, even from his husband, even from her husband, everything happens. But she has this little bit of spirit that made her believe that she has a meaningful life. She has something to do with her life. And later came this Leila. When she found that Rashid is interested and is about to marry Leila, she felt devastated and it completely she felt bad about her own self. She's already couldn't make children, and now there's another competition, and she felt that this is the time that I should be taken away out of this family. She herself voluntarily want to take herself out of this family, but then she comes to know that Laila is not also being treated well by Rashid. Rashid treated these two women just as a machine, a childbearing machine, and a house cleaner or whatsoever, as a maid or whatsoever they has treated. He want them to obey. He wants Mariam and Layla to obey his order, not to ask questions, not to ask for anything willingly or desirably. Nothing will be heard by him. All that he gave them was disrespect and is not loyal to them also. So the point where these two women started to talk about their own agony and problems with each other, they come to relate each other's. Okay, this was the thing that happened to me, and this has been repeated to you, Leila. This was the conversation these two women are having. And later part, what happens? Leila bore two children to Rashid, and after that, at one point of time, he finds that Laila had a visitor, a male visitor, that is no one else but Tariq. The maid from his house told Rashid that Laila had a male visitor, which he cannot even accept, which Rashid cannot even accept. So he immediately started to show his rage over Laila and started to hit her very badly, and he started to strangle her. Once it gets more intense, Miriam steps in and she tried to retrieve Laila from the tight hold of Rashid. And then something dramatically happens, and Miriam, out of all those anger and that has been impregnated in her life, she took out that anger on Rashid, and he was killed by the hands of Miriam. He was killed in the hands of Miriam, and later she found herself guilty, and she confessed that she has killed her own husband, and she was put up in prison. And Layla escaped. The only thing that Mariam wanted for Layla is to have a good life, unlike herself. So Mariam, by sacrificing her own life, has given the freedom to Layla. So she made Layla to escape along with her children to Pakistan. Along with Tariq, she took asylum in Pakistan, and then for some time she was there. And then she comes to know that she's already pregnant with a third child, which is supposed to be Rashid's. So now she's bearing this third child, and the father of the child is no one else but Rashid, who is being killed by Marin. But it is not affecting her because now she has her own freedom. Now she has a love life. Now she finds that Tariq is alive and he's beside her, everything being good to her. So she's finding her life has some meaning. But whenever she finds happiness in her life, she immediately thinks all the happiness that I'm attaining now is because of Mariam's sacrifice. So later on, she visits Afghanistan, and she finds on her way to see Laila owns a house for like orphanage for children. So before visiting that place, she has gone to this Mariam's father's place. Then she finds Mariam is not alive, and the Taliban, what they did, after knowing the truth that Mariam has murdered her own husband, they have stoned her to death. Initially, she was put up in prison, then they took her out and they have stoned her to death. This was happened. By knowing the truth, Laila felt really bad, and she felt that all the life that she is living now, or the freedom that she is having now, is all because of the sacrifice of Mariam. And then she finds a letter from Mariam's father, Jalil, and it states that he feels very sad, very bad for doing certain things, and he is a lovable father, but he has not been, what to say, is not being given the opportunity to show his love to her own daughter, and he has given out a bunch of people and money, and the money is from the land which is sold. It's an ancestral property, and he gave Mariam's cut, and it has been bundled up and alongside this letter. And she made use of this money. Laila took the money along with her, and she made use of this money for renovating this orphanage that is owned by Leila. So throughout this novel, we comes to know that this one striking feature is that the novel has been portrayed from the narration of these two women. The narrator's point of view is from this. It's not that straightly the author is not talking about this. There is no mere spectator or any other strange speaker who's narrating the happening. Initially, by the beginning of the novel, it is all from the words of Miriam, and then after a certain point, the narration shifts to Layla. So both women point of view are being presented throughout this novel, and which is not been done, or which is very rarely done in many novels, because for a woman who's not been heard or seen in an Afghan culture, she has been given a voice. So the one best thing the author has done for these two women is he has been the voice of these two women. He has depicted their struggle in their own words. So that is one of the striking feature. And revelation of self is here. She Miriam has undergone a lot in her life. And that one point where she stood for herself, and one point where she acted on her own emotion, is like the revelation that there is a need for freedom in herself. And she sacrificed herself to give away the freedom to someone who dearly loves, that is Layla. So that's this revelation of self. Thank you.
Thank you,
Ma'am, thank
Kalivani
you,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
ma'am.
it's a wonderful presentation, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, you have studied about all the characters in this novel. It's a wonderful study. You talked about this revelation of self.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
this
Yes,
revelation
ma'am.
of self is very important. Yes,
Okay.
realizing ourselves is very important, and I can
Yes,
see
ma'am.
that you have done a real good study on these characters. So
Yes,
here
ma'am.
is my question:
Yes, ma'am.
can you say the view, that is Mariam's and Laila's
Ah,
view on women's place in society? How these two characters
okay.
view of women's place in society? Can you say
Yes,
something about?
yes, ma'am.
Yes.
As I was introducing these both word characters in the beginning, Mariam is being considered as a weak character as throughout this novel. But whenever she sees or whenever she talks about the women, like her own mother, when she talks about her own mother Nana, who has committed suicide, she felt bad for her. She felt like, oh, even I am an abomination, as like my mother. She saw that every other women in every other household are undergoing the same treatment like as I'm doing. It's the same to me. So she has a question in nature whether am I the only one who's undergoing this torture, or every other woman in this household and entirely in Afghan, are they having the same kind of treatment, or am I someone who is like supposed to be treated like this? Am I a sinner or something like that? She has a questionable nature. She has this kind of a personality. When it comes to Layla, Layla is too young, and she's full of hopes. She thought that, okay, my life is going to be this. I'm going to enter into an university, pursue a degree, and find myself in different places, higher places, and find a job and do good in life. This is the, I would say, it's like an American dream where you can hope for every good things to happen in your life. They both are from the same nation, under the same political stature, but these two women are seeing life and people in a different perspectives. Two different light on these two characters, where Miriam sees that everything or everyone is having the same kind of problem as I am. And when it comes to Layla, whatever everyone is having, I'm not bothered. I am supposed to have what I work for. So this is what Layla's perspective. So when it comes to Miriam, she's a typical Afghan woman. When it comes to Layla, she is not. That's the differentiation, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. You have really explained the things well.
Thank
The
you, ma'am.
character comparison is really good.
Okay, ma'am.
Yes. So I should congratulate, ma'am. You have done a
Thank,
real good job.
thank you, ma'am.
Yes. And it's a request. If the participants want to ask anything to Kalivani madam, you can unmute your mic and you can ask. Yeah, there are no questions, which means you have really explained everything, ma'am.
Thank,
Kalivani ma'am. Yeah, thank you
thanks,
so
ma'am.
much.
Thanks
So
for
we
the
can move
opportunity,
on.
ma'am.
Yeah, thank you so much. So we can
Thank
move
you.
on to the next paper presenter. Next paper presenter is Nisha Khan. She's a PhD scholar in DIT University, Dehradun.
Yes,
Ma'am, are you there, Nisha?
yes, ma'am.
Please switch on the camera and you can introduce yourself. And she's going to talk about blasphemy, a study of domestic abuse against women in the name of Allah. So, session is open for you, ma'am. You can present.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it visible, ma'am?
Yeah, you can carry on. Yes.
So good morning, everyone. My name is Nisha Khan. This is scholar from DIT University, Dehradun. And my paper's title is Blasphemy, a study of domestic abuse against women in the name of Allah by Tahmina Durrani. So first of all, I would like to talk about the area of consideration. So blasphemy throws light upon a universal issue, that how religion is exploited and how it is used as a weapon by the powerful to cripple the masses who ironically don't fully understand their religion. And this is the novel that depicts patriarchy and male domination at its peak, and the condition of women and underprivileged people, and religious fundamentalism at its extreme. So the novel unravels how patriarchy can misuse religion to suppress women within the household as well as outside of the threshold. So Durrani's blasphemy emphasizes the corrupt nature of religious leaders, the evils like polygamy, rape, and child molestation at heart-wrenching level. And my paper's aim is to focus on exploring and understanding how the patriarchal society and the corrupt religious system spoil the women under the aegis of Holy Quran. So this is a novel. It is a tale of a brave, young, and most suffering protagonist named Heer, who exposes the faith of innocent people in the most faithless authority called Pearson, who is considered most respected person among the people of his village. He, the protagonist of the novel, dares to expose the corruption, cruelty, and inhuman treatment meted out to the women by the system of shrine, but finally realizes that the unchangeable social situation of their people deeply rooted in the practices of shrine. This novel is a kind of lamentation for the dogmas and the blind faith of the followers of the corrupt peace, who in the name of religion are playing with their faith. The people of Pearson's village consider his husband as a sacred pet, but he turns out to be the most malevolent who is exploiting their religious sentiments. Now I'll talk about the abusive marriage system, and Heer, who is the protagonist of the novel, is married at the age of 15 to a peer of her father's age, whose religious persona is venerated in the entire village. The marriage proves to be a horrid dream for Heer, and Heer's dreams of happiness get scattered as she enters into Peer's Haveli. The man who pretends to be the man of God was actually a demon by nature. He tortured her in every possible way. Her marriage was a series of torturous events, both physical and emotional. She is beaten, humiliated, abused, raped, trapped, and made to live in the world her husband made for her. A world where she is not allowed to cross the threshold without her husband's permission, where she is beaten brutally for coming in front of a 6-year-old boy. Now I'll talk about the next theme of this novel, exploitation in the name of Allah. Pearson exploited the weak and ignorant people in the name of Allah and Islam. And anyone who dared to raise his voice against the system was crushed away in a way that served as an example for other people to never question in the authority of the peace and sister shrine in future. So blasphemy reveals how Peer misuses the name of Islam, misuses the name of Allah by dishonoring and molesting the innocent women. And it reveals how the miserable women suffer due to the misinterpretation of religious injunctions by the peace. The novelist attempts to emphasize the notion that how male has often seen religion as a tool to subjugate women. So, under the veil of the religion, Pearson molested his own young daughter and other girls of the same age. And taking the advantage of burqa, he presented here his own wife to his friends as a whole. And this is the novel that reveals the dark side of religion and power. As religion is associated with God and goodness, and it must treat men and women in equal terms with humanity and humility. But under the patriarchal system, the mediators like Pearson exploits religious authority, humiliating, degrading, victimizing, and subjugating women. Immortality of the system of shrine. So in Blasphemy, Tahmina Durrani exposed the immortality of the system of shrine. She raised her voice against the distorted version of Islam, and she says that the shrine is a symbol of exploitation. If men can use Allah against the weak, all other means are lesser and easier to exploit. And if we make a war against the shrine, every truth will be served. Now I'll talk about the sexual exploitation in the novel. So the novel Blasphemy is a dreadful tale of the vulnerable and naive victims of the lust of Pearson. Pearson, who is considered the most sacred religious entity, but in reality he is doing the most shameful act, using the helpless innocent girls for his sexual pleasure. Pearson, who is a religious leader for others, a source of spiritual guidance for his people, but his reality is only known by the women of the Haveli and his wife here. Pearson not only presented distorted version of Islam, but also misguided to the people, especially to his blind followers. And the worst thing about the tragedy of the heroine of the novel here is that she has to face the most affront act, that on the command of her husband, she has to submit herself to the clients of Pearson for their sexual demands. So he has been brutalized by her own husband, who exploited her for pornography. She has been sexually abused and meted out inhuman treatment by her own husband, considered to be the most holy peer in the locality. Now, the next theme of this novel is restraint and seclusion, as it is said that respect is in the eye of the beholder, not in a piece of cloth. But here is beaten by her own husband because she doesn't cover her face in front of a 6-year-old boy, because this is expected from the girl, that they should be in a parda. And it is said that if a girl will be covered from the head to toe, no one can see her. So it means that they have to manage the family's honor and reputation. The idea is that a woman's face may attract the man and tempt him to rape or molest her. So if the face is covered, there will be no problem. This is indeed a very difficult for a woman who is compelled to live a life of seclusion from the outer world, to raise her voice against the misinterpretation of religion by her own husband, like here. Living in Parda, he made up her mind to fight against the old age conventions and norms prevalent in the society in the name of religion. As she herself says, that my mind was consumed with the idea of Parda. From behind it, no call for help could be heard. And abandoned spices was trapped in a forbidden world. Everything corrupt happened under the shroud when it was of a faceless and nameless women appeared. Now I want to conclude my paper. So in Blasphemy, Tahmina Durrani took an initiative to expose the cruel, hidden, corrupt religious authority that in the name of faith exploiting the basic human values. She also took into account the plight of the female characters, who are the victims of deep seclusion, erotic exploitation, and spiritual duplicity. She raised her voice against such patriarchal and male-dominated and distorted version of religious values, in which women are merely the subjects of subordination, subjugation, and sexual exploitation. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
It's a wonderful presentation, ma'am. Actually,
Thank you so much.
Blasphemy is a serious novel. You know, when we read it, we used to get some discomfort of the characters' sufferings and all. So, can you say that this novel, as a resistance novel, because all the characters, the female bonding was given more importance here? Can you explain something about that?
Actually, this is the novel that I want to say that in the novel it is shown that there is a wrong interpretation in the world, which is clearly reflected in the novel, that Islam encourages suppression and subjugation of women. Sometimes like media also shows incidents relating mistreatment of women in Islamic world in a more comprehensive way. But uh, I want to say that women, uh, it is written in the holy book of Quran that women and men are equal. They are made of a single soul. So men and women, it says that were created of a single soul and are more equal in the sight of God. And women have the right to divorce, to inherit property, to conduct business, and to have access to knowledge. But in the name of the religion and with the name of the Allah, the people of the society, the patriarchal society, subjugate the women in the name of the religion.
Yes, you're right. And neat presentation, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah. You have dealt with all the important issues in the novel and the clear explanation was given. And other participants, if you want to ask anything to Nisha ma'am, you can do. You can unmute your mic and you can ask. Yes, ma'am, it's a really nice presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah. So now we are moving on to the last presentation of the session. Krishna Veni ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
Yeah, Krishna Veni ma'am. She is a research scholar from the St. Saviour's College, Kotai. And she is going to talk about endeavors of dichotomy in survival, cultural reincarnation, and soul revival in Tim Scott's taboo. Yes, ma'am. The session is given for you. You can present your paper, please.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Krishna Veni, research scholar from St. Saviour's College, Kotai. Let me share my screen. Today I'm going to present my paper on the title Endeavors of Dichotomy in Survival, Cultural Recantation and Soul Revival in Kim Scott's Taboo. So, Kim Scott, he's an Australian Aboriginal novelist and he was the first Indigenous author to win Miles Franklin Literary Award. And he won this award twice in the year 2000 for his work Benang from the Heart, and again in the year 2011 for his That Dead Man Dance. And he's the member of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Arts Board of the Australian Council. And these are the works of Kim Scott, his debut novel True Country, then Benang from the Heart, then The Dead Man Dance, and his lost novel is Taboo. So, as the title says, the paper deals with tracing the endeavors of the Australian Aborigines in the Kokangarup near the Ravensthorpe in Western Australia through their displacement in an attempt to save their lives following the massacre from the racist oppressors and the efforts of their descendants to reclaim their rights and identity on the parameters of survival. So in this paper, we're going to see the duality in the survival experiences of the Aboriginal people, that is the physical survival by leaving their homeland, and of the cultural survival that is spiritual. These are all the things I have discussed in my paper through the critical study of Kim Scott's. And when we talk about the novel, the select novel Taboo, the novel set in the southwest region in Western Australia. And the place where the novel has its setting is considered as taboo for the indigenous people due to the massacre that happened in the 19th century. Our protagonist, Tilly, the indigenous girl, along with the other indigenous people and the descendants of the Aboriginal community who lived in Kokonara or related to that place. They are planning to visit their home place, and it represents the path to healing over their terrible past. So when we talk about the objectives of my research article, it is to discuss the potential threat to the lives of the native through the racial oppression by the white settlers, and to emphasize the intrinsic value of culture and how it associated with the spiritual development, the spiritual growth of the people. And it also highlights the importance of preserving the cultural knowledge, and to analyze the binary temper of survival through the subjugated experiences of the aborigines, and to elaborate the resilient attitude of the descendants of the native people by revisiting their homeland after decades, which has been labeled as a haunting place till then after the massacre. So the hypothesis of this article is the deals with strategies and the spirit of the survival of the subjugated people have been manipulated by the depth of violence against them and the necessity for rebellious change. So, the culture, more than an anchor to the communities with all the values of traits, is offers an inclination towards creating distinctive myths and customs and specific habitual structures that defines the ethical underpinnings to isolate the communal groups from one another. And this paper illustrates that the emphasis should be established on the subject of expostulating the transgressions of cultural boundaries of specific ethnic groups in order to maintain the peculiarities and identity of different communal groups. As Franz Fanon proclaims, a national culture is the whole body of efforts made by a people in the sphere of thought to describe, justify, and praise the action through which that people have created itself and keeps itself in existence in his work, The Wretched of the Earth. Considering the insights of Edenhausen Hobson on exile, it helps us to understand the painful memories of home and the loss of sense of belongingness. And he perceives exile, the term, as a relative term, a separation from one's homeland and the certainty of never returning to how things once were. Kim Scott, in his novel Taboo, shows us how the indigenous people formed a bond of trust, love, and sense of belongingness attached to their land and moved to the conditions of chaos due to their invasion of the white settlers and their forced exile. And in this novel, the character Antinita, an old woman, she expresses her grief saying, "None of you know the things we learned when we were kids. A Noongar things, a proper Noongar things." And here, the Noongar is an Aboriginal community in the Western Australia. And the article, it focuses on the passive resistance of the Aboriginal community, the Noongars, in the fear of a violent tumult for their physical survival. As James Scott, he talks about the passive protest or the passive rebelliousness of subversive presence through false complaints and feign ignorance, slander, and food dragging. In the same way, the Noongar community, they passively left their land. And this passive means of resistance is contrast to the romanticized form of visible and collective resistance that could be considered as a political, like a serious social struggle. So, the Christopher Kassandjian, in his article, A Cultural Dislocation Finding the Intercultural Possibilities in Exile, he states that exile is someone who becomes displaced. The home is lost and for whom the identity problematized again and again. Kim Scott, in his novel, also depicts how the revival of cultural identity, which could be taken as a spiritual resistance, becomes the survival mechanism. The character Don Horton tells his brother Malcolm about how the indigenous people planning to revisit their native place. As he says, "Malcolm, I think they want to visit Kukanuruk, they want to reconcile themselves to what happened here." and to have their elders come back particularly. As Jasper Jane, he defines resistance is not necessarily about newness, but about cleaning up all the cobwebs which prevent us from understanding the nature of reality. In the novel, one of the twins, Jerry, he says enthusiastically, we can bring back the language and the old stories. The attempts and the efforts of the Aboriginal people and their descendants to recover their traditional knowledge and language renders a path to enshrine the soul of their community. As Hans Moll suggests, even in the most advanced societies, the need for identity has been strong enough to perpetuate a demand for order and sameness and an abhorrence of disorder and chaos. So to conclude, this research paper encapsulates the necessity and dichotomy of survival spirit of the Aboriginal people in Australia, manifesting the situations of oppression and resilience between the white settlers and the natives. And the study has made all these issues against the concept of Prudentius, a Roman poet, with the psychomachia, which means the battle for the soul. Kim Scott, in his novel Taboo, he reflects the struggle between the whites and the aborigines in Kakanarup that can be illustrated as the allegorical construction of a conflict between the evil and goodness. As Macklin Smith, he comments, Faith is the moral heroine of the Psychomachia. She leads the armies of virtues. After all the known vices have been defeated, she advises the virtues not to rest but to remain on God against the future attacks. In the novel, a character Milton, an old man, he optimistically says, it is our homeland, our ancestral country we are reconnecting with. Jan Asmund speaks of spiritual resistance, validates us as one of these cultural forces in the attempt of preserving the essence of communal groups. Likewise, Kim Scott, he advocates the emergence of social equality and political independence of the natives to create the cohesion of their integral cultural identity. Thank you.
Thank you, dear Krishnaveni ma'am. It's a neat presentation. I have a question. Ma'am, can you hear me?
Yeah, ma'am.
Yeah. So, can you say something like how this Kim Scott reconnects with pre-colonial heritage in this novel Taboo?
Ma'am,
How
can you
Scott,
please say that again?
yeah, how Scott reconnects with pre-colonial heritage.
Colonial heritage.
Yeah, pre-colonial heritage.
Yeah, okay. In all his novel, as I had mentioned before, in all his four novels, he talks about not only the impacts of colonization, but also the first encounters between the Aboriginal people and the settlers and the colonizers. As there is a common misconception about Australia that most of the people, they perceive the country of Australia as a place where the convicts has been transported to. And more than that, most of the people have no knowledge about the Aboriginal people and their culture. While the first contact between the natives and the settlers were very friendly, but with the course of time, only the relationship gets changed when the settlers becomes so greedy, and they started to oppress the Aboriginal people, and they started to impose and restrict the action and both the controlling the social position of the natives, and they term them as an uncivilized, and they try to marginalize them. So and they tried all means to terminate the entire Aboriginal race from their own country. So he just represent how the relationship which was once started as a cordial and friendly means, and how it just changed into a violent racial oppression.
Yeah, a good explanation. And one more thing, from your title, there's a word like cultural recreation, right? Yeah. Can you point out one particular incident from the novel to explain this concept?
When we look at the lifestyle of the Aboriginal people, we can get to know how they are, how they structure each and every event and their cultural practices closely attached to their land. So after the massacre that happened in Kokanarup, the people, they are forced to leave their land in order to save their lives. So once the displacement happened, the dislocation happened, they cut off from their roots and both their tradition and culture. And in this novel, we can find certain incidents where the younger generation, the descendants of the people who left their land, they struggle to regenerate their, the traditional language. They only try to learn their traditional language with the bits and fragments of the knowledge they have been collected from the people, from the old people, the elders of the Aboriginal community. So the displacement, the exile of the Aboriginal people, it serves as it leads to the cultural recantation of the Aboriginal people and how they get uprooted from their roots.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The cultural uprootment, you correctly explained it. So, thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Krishnavedi, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
And I thank all the paper presenters of today. You people have brought out your own points and ideas, the concepts, everything in a very good presentation. So I should congratulate all the people, Krishnaveni ma'am and Nisha ma'am, Kalevani ma'am, and also Manchuri. So, in a thankful note, we are going to end the session. If there is any queries, you can ask the participants. If you want to ask any questions to anybody, you can ask.